Every single night, 50 million Americans wake up to use the bathroom, not once but to 3 sometimes, 5 times. And here is what nobody is telling you at your doctor's appointment. In 80% of those cases your bladder is completely healthy. It is in the problem, and the pills, the supplements, the herbs you've been taking for your prostate or your bladders, they are aimed at the wrong organ entirely. Subscribe to Dr. Sonam Bodki right now and hit that like button. It takes 5 seconds. We're working towards 1,000 subscribers and we're building this channel on one principle. The system makes money when you stay sick, not when you get better. What I'm about to tell you, nobody in AC clinic waiting room is going to say. 3:00 in the morning your apartment is completely still. You finally sank into that deep heavy sleep, the good kind, and then the signal comes. Faint at first somewhere at the edge of your awareness. You try to roll over. You try to think about something, everything else but the pressure builds. You throw back the covers, drop your feet onto the cold floor and shuffle to the bathroom like a zombie's. You squint against the light. You did what you come back to bed and sleep is gone. Your mind is running. Work, the mortgage, the kids. You lay there for an hour. You finally drift off and it happens again. Second time tonight. You wake up in the morning shattered, heavenly headed, and you pour coffee into yourself all day just to function. I see this in the eyes of hundreds of patients who walked into my practice, and almost every one of them says the same thing. Doc, what can you do? It's just age. Everybody gets up at night. Let me be direct with you. That is Ali. It is a dangerous illusion and it needs to be shattered right now. Getting up at night to urinate is not normal. Not at 40, not at 50, not at 70. A healthy body is built differently. At night, your brain produces a specific hormone called antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin. Think of it as a factory manager sending a memos to your kidneys. Stop night shift. Concentrate the urine. Reduce the volume. Run in economy mode. That mechanism is precisely what allows a healthy person to sleep 7 or 8 hours straight without a single interruption. When that mechanism breaks down, it is not a minor inconvenience. In medicine, the condition is called nocturia, which simply means urinating repeatedly during the night, and it is a diagnosis. If you get up once a night, that is a warning signal. If you get up twice or more, that is an alarm going off, because every single time you wake up, your pulse jumps, your blood pressure spikes, and you interrupted the phase of deep sleep, the phases in which your brain clears out metabolic waste products, neurons repair themselves, and your heart genuinely rests. Years of losing this phase is a direct path to hypertension, depression, and accelerated brain aging. Clinical research shows that nocturia stresses the cardiovascular system faster than smoking. That is not an exaggeration. That is data from published clinical studies. Now, here is the most important thing I want you to hear. Right now, when patients come to me with this complaint, most have already decided. They know the cause. Mina said, "Doctor, it's a me prostate. I'm sure of it." Women say, "It's menopause, prolapse, chronic bladder infections." You've been drinking diuretic herbal teas, taking antibiotics, buying advertised supplements for urological health. They've been restricting their water intake. That's so aggressive. Their mouth goes dry by evening. They stop drinking tea after 6:00. They went to bed parched and they still got up at 3:00 in the morning. Why? Because they are fighting the symptoms, not the cause. Let me explain this with a simple model. Imagine your home's fire alarm goes off in the middle of the night. What do most people do? They cover the sensor with tape so it stops making noise. The correct response is to find where the fire is. That is exactly how most people treat their nighttime bathroom trips. Your bladder is the sensor. It is simply signaling that something is happening somewhere else in the body. In 80% of cases, the bladder is perfectly healthy. It is doing exactly what it is supposed to do, emptying what gets put into it. The problem is not the reservoir. The problem is who is filling it during the night and why. And the answer to that, the question may genuinely shock you. The culprit is your legs and your heart. But before we get to the mechanism, I need to say something as a physician. With 15 years of clinical experience, there are symptoms that should send you straight to a doctor, not to a video. Know these. First, blood in your urine without pain. Remember that combination. If there is pain and blood, it is most likely a kidney stone or acute bladder infection. Miserable, but not immediately life-threatening. But if you see dark red or brown urine, blood clots in the toilet bowl, and nothing hurts, that is one of the most serious early signs of bladder cancer in men and women over 50. That finding is a direct indication for size to microscopy, a procedure where the doctor looks inside bladder with a small camera. Do not wait seconds. Bone pain combined with sudden weight loss. If your nighttime trips are accompanied by aching in your pelvis or lowering back, and you've lost 10 to 20 pounds is over 2 months without dieting, that pattern is a warning for. If none of those apply to you, you can breathe, you are going to be fine, but the quality of that life is worth protecting. And to do that, we need to understand exactly the malfunction is happening in your system. In urology, nighttime urinary problems divided into 3 fundamentally different types. The treatment for each is different, and what helps one type can actively making another worse. Type 1 is global polyuria, that is producing too much urine over all. You are going frequently both day and night, and each time the volume is large. If you collected everything you produced in 24 hours, you would measure 3 to 4 liters. There are usually 2 causes. First, you are simply drinking enormous amounts of fluid, walking around all day with a water bottle, thinking more is always better. The physics is simple, whatever goes in must come out. Second cause is diabetes, either type 2 diabetes where glucose pulls water with it, or central diabetes insipidus, which involves disruption in the hormones. Brain urine in this type is usually pale, nearly odorless, and you go just as often during the day as at night. This type needs an endocrinologist and a blood sugar test. Type 2 is nocturnal polyuria, the most insidious type and the one found in 60 to 70% of people over 50. The picture looks like this. During the day, you live completely normally. You work, you run errands, you visit the bathroom every 4 or 5 hours. Nothing hurts, nothing burns. But the moment you lay down, the nightmare begins. 3 or 4 trips per night, each time a full bladder, large volume. In the morning, you look and you genuinely cannot figure it out. You had half a glass of kefir last night. Where did 1 and 1 to L of fluid come from? This is classic nocturnal polyuria. Your kidneys have switched their filtration activity to nighttime hours. They run at half capacity during and at 200% at night. We will unpack why in detail in a moment. The critical point: if this is your type, the bladder has nothing to do with it. Treating the bladder is useless. Type 3 is a reservoir problem. Here, it is the opposite. Urges are frequent, sudden and urgent. It feels like you would not making it. You rushed to the bathroom, sit down, and almost nothing comes out. A few drops. 40 minutes later, the same storm hits, and again, almost nothing. The problem here is the bladder itself. It has lost the ability to stretch to a normal capacity, or its nerve signals have become hypersensitive. The trigger fires at 50 milliliters of urine, even though the normal capacity before urgency should be 200 to 300 milliliters. This occurs with benign prostatic enlargement in men, overactive bladder in women, chronic bladder infection, or bladder and ureteral stones. So, to lock that in, frequent and large volume both day and night. Global polyuria, fine during the day, flooding at night. Nocturnal polyuria, urgent and frequent urges, but tiny output, a reservoir problem. Identified your type? Keep it in mind. Now, I want to tell you about one of my patients. Iwol, call him Anatoly, 54 years old, solid self-sufficient man, not a complainer. Only comes to see a doctor when he is desperate. And he was desperate. He walked in with a thick folder of paperwork, bladder ultrasound, PSA blood test. PSA is a prostate cancer marker. Stacks of prescriptions. He told me right away, "Doc, it's a me prostate or God forbid cancer. Do something. I'm losing my mind." He laid out his timeline. First, 1 trip a night, ignored it. Then 2, then 3, for the last 6 months, 4 or 5 times per night. Imagine that torture. You finally fell into sleep and you are yanked out of it again and again. Anatoly had done what the internet and advertisers tell you to. Done. Since he was running to the bathroom, his prostate must be guilty. He went to the pharmacy, bought the marketed supplements, the suppositories, the herbal blends. Then he reasoned, if I am producing so much urine, I need to drink less. He imposed a strict and still at 2:00 in the morning he got up and released half a liter. At 4:00 in the morning, another half liter. Where was it coming from? He had not drunk a thing. When he sat in front of me, with eyes red from sleep deprivation, I looked at his lab work. PSA, the prostate cancer marker, was completely normal. He had a mild first-degree benign prostate enlargement, but that degree does not produce this clinical picture. His bladder was clean, no stones. From a urological standpoint, he was nearly healthy. Yet this man was not sleeping and was suffering. So I stopped asking about how he urinated. I started asking about how he lived. Any shortness of breath? A little, I guess. When I climbed to the 3rd floor, I had to stop and catch my breath. But I smoked for 20 years. I only quit a year ago. Does his ring feel tight by evening? Does the elastic of his socks left a groove on his leg? Yes, he said. When I took my socks off, there is an actual indentation in the skin. But does natriuretic have that? And right then the picture clicked into place for me. He told him something that stunned him. Anatoly, throw out the prostate pills. You don't need or. Scientist, I'm referring you to a cardiologist and a sleep specialist. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. What is my heart having to do with it? I am running to the bathroom, not clutching my chest. But he listened, and here is what the specialists found. The cardiologist identified early-stage heart failure, hidden with no dramatic symptoms. During the day, Anatoly's shirt was working at its limits. It could not fully circulating his blood volume, and fluid was pooling in his body tissues, primarily in his legs. And the sleep specialist, a doctor who diagnoses sleep disorders, found obstructive sleep apnea. Brief repeated pauses in breathing. During sleep, the person snores, stops, then startles with a gasp. Sleep apnea, its own disrupts the production of antidiuretics, hormones, and forces the kidneys to work more actively during nighttime hours. When Anatoly was taking prostate supplements, he was trying to fix a leaking faucets while a piping had burst in the basement. Let me walk you now through the physics of what was happening in his body, because it is happening in the majority of you. Watching this, picture a plastic bottle half filled with water. When it stands upright, the water sits at the bottom. When you lay it on its side, the water distributes evenly. Your body works the same way. 16 hours a day you are vertical, standing, sitting. Gravity pulls everything downward. Blood, lymphatic fluid, the fluid between your cells, all of it towards your feet and ankles. When we are young, our blood vessels are having like strong elastic tubes. The valves inside our veins hold blood firmly and do not let it pool below. The muscles in our legs when we walk contract rhythmically and act as a pump, pushing blood upward against gravity. But with age, or if we lead sedentary lives, this mechanism weakens. Veins expand, valves start to leak, and the muscle pump shuts down because we are sitting at a desk or on a couches. Fluid begins to seep out through the vessel walls into the soft tissue surrounding them. In the loose, connective tissue of the legs, up to 1 liters of water can quietly accumulate. 1 liters. That is 3 large mugs of tea, and you may not even notice it. The socks left as light grooves. So what? Your kidneys do not see that water. It is switched dead out of the bloodstream. The kidneys filter only what is circulating in the blood. Now comes the evening. Anatoly gets home from work, has a large dinner, often with something salty, a pickle, cured meat, a spoonful of mayonnaise, and sits in front of the television from 7:00 to 11 o'clock at night, 4 hours. His legs are hanging down. Gravity keeps working. Fluid keeps accumulating in the tissues of his calves. His heart is moving slowly, low pulse, because he is simply sitting still. Then he turns off the television and lies down. And here is where it gets critical. His legs rise to the same level as his kidneys and his heart. But he listened, and here is what the specialists found. The cardiologist identified early-stage heart failure, hidden with no dramatic symptoms. During the day, Anatoly's shirt was working at its limits. It could not fully circulating his blood volume, and fluid was pooling in his body tissues, primarily in his legs. And the sleep specialist, a doctor who diagnoses sleep disorders, found obstructive sleep apnea, brief repeated pauses in breathing. During sleep, the person snores, stops, then startles with a gasp. Sleep apnea its own disrupts the production of antidiuretics, hormones, and forces the kidneys to work more actively during nighttime hours. When Anatoly was taking prostate supplements, he was trying to fix a leaking faucet while a piping had burst in the basement. Let me walk you now through the physics of what was happening in his body, because it is happening in the majority of you. Watching this, picture a plastic bottle half filled with water. When it stands upright, the water sits at the bottom. When you lay it on its side, the water distributes evenly. Your body works the same way. 16 hours a day you are vertical, standing, sitting. Gravity pulls everything downward. Blood, lymphatic fluid, the fluid between your cells, all of it towards your feet and ankles. When we are young, our blood vessels are having like strong elastic tubes. The valves inside our veins hold blood firmly and do not let it pool below. The muscles in our legs when we walk contract rhythmically and act as a pump, pushing blood upward against gravity. Gravity no longer holds the fluid down in his legs. All that fluid, the water that collected over 12 hours in the sponge of his tissues, begins rapidly returning to the bloodstream. It is reabsorbed into the veins and rushes in a powerful waves towards the center of the body. The volume of circulating blood rises sharply. Imagine that someone injected an extra liter of fluid directly into your circulatory system within a single hours. That is not a metaphor. That is precisely what happens to your body every night when you have hidden edema in your legs. And at this moment, the conductor of this nighttime concert steps on to the stage. Your heart, specifically, a small but powerful hormone with a sophisticated name, atrial natriuretic peptides, also called AMP. Listen carefully, because this is the central mechanism of this entire discussion. When the returning fluid from the legs reaches the heart, the right atrium begins to fill and stretch beyond its normal volume. The heart recognizes that the system is overloaded, that pressure is rising, so it releases AMP into the bloodstream, a chemical telegram to the kidneys. The message is brief: dump the excess fluid immediately or it will fail. This hormone blocks aldosterone, the hormone responsible for retaining water in your body, and your kidneys shifted into emergencies mode. They filter the blood at an accelerated rate, expelling water and sodium to protect the heart from overload. The result is predictable. Within an hour of lying down, your bladder is full. You get up, go to the bathroom, come back, but the fluid from your legs has not finished mobilizing. The processing continues. 2 hours later, full bladder again. and the cycle repeats until morning. That is why Anatoly, who had not drunk a drop of water since 6:00 in the evening, was running to the bathroom all night. He was quite literally drinking through his legs. His legs had stored 1 liters of fluid during the day, and at night all of that fluid fun led through his kidneys. No prostate supplements, no herbal blend could stop it, because those interventions were targeting the completely wrong organ. Treating your bladder with pills when the cause is in your heart and gravity is exactly the same as taping over a fire alarm sensor. Your body is trying to save you, and you are trying to stop it. Now, how to check whether this is actually happening in you? No MRI, no complex lab work. All you need are your own hands and a few minutes of attention. Test 1. Locating hidden fluids. Sit comfortably. Expose your lower leg, the section between your knee and your ankle. Find your shin bones. That is the hard surface along the front of your lower leg that has no muscle covering it. Place the pad of your thumb against that bone, roughly 4 to 6 inches above your ankle. Press firmly and hold for 10 to 15 seconds. The pressure should be definite. Remove your thumb and run the pad of another finger across the same spot. What do you feel? If the skin immediately springs back smooth and flat, no significant edema. But if your thumb left a dent that does not fill back in for several seconds, that you can see and feel, congratulations. You have just located a hidden reservoir of fluid. Even if your leg does not look swollen from the outside, that pit is evidence that your tissues are saturated with water, and at night, all of that water will move through your kidneys. Test 2. A simplified urine diary. Take 1 day off and do some simple measurements. Get any container with volume markings. A measuring cups will do. Record your urine output separately, daytime and nighttime, including the very first urination immediately after waking in the morning. Add the numbers. If your nighttime urine output exceeds 33%, more than a third of your total daily output, that is officially called nocturnal polyuria. A simple example: over 24 hours you produce 1,500 milliliters. If 500 milliliters or more of that came at night, this is your situation. Your kidneys have inverted their schedule because of edema or a hormonal disruption, not because of your bladder, not because of your prostate, because fluid is redistributing incorrectly through your body. If both tests came back positive, the pit stays on your leg, and at night you are producing large amounts of pale diluted urine. We can relax. Your bladder is most likely completely fine. You do not need surgery, expensive procedures, or lifelong medication. You need to work on your circulation and your daily routine, and that is exactly what comes next. You might ask, fine, you understand about the legs and gravity, but you also eat. Can food affect this process? Absolutely, in ways that will genuinely surprise you. There are foods that act like a delayed switching on your kidneys, programming them to do most of their work at night, and you are probably eating them at dinner, sincerely believing they are harming less or even healthy. When asking patients what they eat in the evenings, most say something like, "Doctor, I watch what I eat. No pickled herrings, no salty snacks. I'm being careful." Then it turns out dinner was a sandwich with cheese and some cured sausages, or hot dogs with buckwheat, or crackers and cream cheese before bed. Write this down somewhere and you'll see it. Hidden salt. We've been trained to think of salt as something that comes out of shame, but 80% of the salt most people consume comes from processed and packaged foods: cheese, cured meats, sausages, mayonnaise, canned goods, bread. 100 g of ordinary hard cheese contains as much sodium as an entire bag of potato chips. You do not taste that sharp saltiness. It is masked by fat and flavor compounds, but it is there. Here, show it works against you. Overnight, you eat a cheese sandwiches at 7:00 in the evening. The sodium enters your blood. Your body activates immediately its defense. Too much salt. We need to dilute this, and begins holding on to every molecule of water it can. This is osmotic pressure at work. Osmotic means related to the concentration of dissolved substances in a fluids. In the evening, you are not running to the bathroom. The salt is keeping water locked inside your blood, vessels and tissues. But overnight, your kidneys detect this accumulated sodium and begin actively excreting it. And sodium acts like a magnet. It pulls water behind it. To flush out 1 gram of excess sodium, the kidneys must run a significant volume of fluids through themselves. The result: you wake up in the middle of the night not because you drank too much. You are eliminating last night's cheese. The second enemy is evening sugar. I had a cup of tea with a cup of cookies, a small apple before bed. What's the harm? It's vitamins. It's natural. Let me explain the biochemistry. Simple carbohydrates in the evening causes a rapid spikes in blood glucose. Your pancreas fires off a burst of insulin. Insulin, beyond its primary role in managing blood sugar, signals your kidneys to retain sodium and water. First comes retention, then 2 to 3 hours later, right around the time you've fallen asleep, blood sugar drops sharply. What follows is air-bound, and your kidneys switch to active fluid excretion. Beyond this, if you have even a degree of insulin resistance, a state where your body cells no longer respond efficiently to insulin, and this affects a substantial portions of people over 40, and usually produces no obvious symptoms. Elevated blood sugar acts as an osmotic diuretic. Sugar itself pulls water out of your cells and into the urine. You get the biological equivalent of a water pills simply by eating a cluster of grapes or a slices of watermelon before bed. The third false friend is alcohol. Many men tell me at appointments, "Doc, I have a small glasses of brandy or aber before bed. It helps me sleep harder." I don't even hear the urge to go. This is one of the most widespread forms of self-deception you encounter. And here is why. Alcohol does help you fall asleep faster. It acts as a sedative and slows down the central nervous system, but it is simultaneous lie, one of the most powerful blockers of antidiuretic hormones, the vasopressin, which we discussed at the start. Remember the factory manager signal to the kidneys: slow down, work in economy mode, concentrate the urine. Alcohol cancels that signal entirely. Under its influence, the brain simply does not send the order. Your kidneys running at full filtration speed, with no restrictions applied. Yes, the sedative effects of alcohol may allow you to sleep through the first urge. The bladder fills up, and you do not wake, but it keeps filling until the second urge becomes painful and impossible to ignore, and your sleep quality throughout the night is profoundly poor without deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep at all. You wake up completely wrecked and with a bursting bladders. The outcome is worse than if you had not had a drink at all. Now, let us talk about what actually helps. The foods that protect and calm the bladder. First on my list, raw pumpkin seeds. And I want to be precise about this. Not roasted, not salted, not sugar-coated. Raw, green pumpkin seeds. This is one of the most genuinely underrated urological tools in everyday nutrition. And I say that not as someone reading from an advertisement, but as the clinician who sees the outcomes in actual patients. Pumpkin seeds contain zinc and magnesium in highly bioavailable form, meaning in the form your body absorbs most efficiently. Magnesium relaxes smooth muscles, including the detrusor, which is the name for the muscular wall of the bladder, helping it expand to a larger volume before triggering the urge to void. The seeds also contain phytosterols, plant-based compounds that strengthen the pelvic floor. In men, they support prostate tissue. In women, they help with pelvic organ support. A handful, about 30 gofra pumpkin seeds daily. That is the cheapest and most effective bladder health habits you can build. Seconds, cranberry, not bottled cranberry juice cocktail from the store. That product typically contains more sugar than soda, And sugar is on our enemy's list. What you need is the actual berries, frozen or fresh or a standardized cranberries, extracted from a pharmacy. Cranberries contain compounds called proanthocyanidins, molecules that prevent bacteria from adhering to the inner lining of the bladder, even in people without a current acute infection. Many adults over 40 harbor a low-grade bacterial presence in the bladder that chronically irritates nerve endings. The bladder becomes hypersensitive. A small amount of urine arrives and it screams, "Empty me now." Cranberry reduces that chronic background irritation and calms the lining. Add a handful to oatmeal or to unsweetened tea. Third, adequates dietary fiber. The connection here is purely mechanical, and it will keep it simple. Chronic constipation means a chronically bloated, gas-filled colon pressing against your bladder. They share the same pelvic real estate, and space is limited. An overloaded colon are halves. Like an aggressive neighbor, it pushes and compresses your bladder constantly. The bladder, squeezed from outside, signals fullness even when it is barely a quarter full.